So we are back for season 2.5 and we are in our second episode of like our look at what is it like to try and lead from the messy middle, especially if you're a millennial just entering into the workforce. And I'm very interested in these episodes because I've not had much experience as a middle manager. I've been an entrepreneur and I've just like more or less only had the experience of I got to lead this whole thing by myself, right? So I also wanted these episodes to be one where we give more voice to the middle managers. So I'm going to try and practice shutting up more and like handing over the mic literally to my middle manager who will be talking to other middle managers across like different organizations. So Asrin, please take it away. What is this episode about?
Oh, it's so funny that you say you're going to practice shutting up more and I am literally having to practice speaking up more.
Oh, yes, see?
And
first one there.
The
really.
leader and manager crisis.
Let's
yes. And yeah, I face a lot of imposter syndrome coming into this conversation as I've shared in the previous episode, but we'll try our best because that's what we can do. Yes. So this episode is Know What You Don't Want. And today we have Afzal.
Hello.
So Afzal also works in a small team where you are toggling between, I guess, top, middle and bottom in different job
Projects.
functions and
Yeah.
projects that you find yourself in. And you are also a solopreneur in some sense.
Oh, are we sharing that part? Oh, yeah.
Retract.
No, it's fine, it's fine. Yeah, but yeah, kind of. So
In separate spaces, I guess. So maybe we can start off by you sharing what that experience is like for you, having to firstly navigate the middle, but occasionally finding yourself toggling between the different other levels.
oof. Okay.
Yeah. What's it like being in
What
the
is it
middle
like
so
being
far?
in the middle. I think it's some days are great. I really think I'm not sure, but I think being in the middle opens me up to support from everywhere as well. I think middles, at least from what I hear from my friends and I guess my own experience, it's a lot of, I'm not sure, like pardon my French, a lot of shit that goes to us. And how it's kind of like, either we take it on or we redirect it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But wherever it goes, it will come through us lah. But at the same time also, I feel in the middle is where if it's not poop, it's like rainbows and flowers and we receive all of it as well. So if the clients are great, oh my God, I feel it. If the bottoms are great, I feel it as well. If my tops are amazing, I also feel the support. So okay, most days is the former, but I think for me it's count my blessings when I feel the latter, when the rainbows and flowers come along. So I do acknowledge that it is quite painful to be a middle, but I also I love my team, and I think much of the love comes from feeling all this support and contribution that I get from the team around me lah. So I'm not sure whether there's a part of the middle story that doesn't really get shared, but that is the part of my story.
What, the rainbow part
Rainbows
and the
and
crab
flowers.
part?
The support part.
Yeah. I guess most of it comes from the crab, but I count my blessings the rainbows and flowers.
It's a real phenomenon, you know. Actually, like that systems practitioner like Barry Oshry talks about how like there's a bit of like a sewer pipe syndrome.
Yeah.
Where like the crap from the top layers of the system flows down to the bottom, and the middles are like the sewer pipes that like contain it all.
Sewer pipes are not meant to collect though. They're meant to just let things pass through.
Yeah, but actually like the mastery of the middles is to like sort of like get out of sewer pipe syndrome. But this is the first time I'm hearing of like the rainbow and flower pipe. Yeah. But anyway, enough from me. I'm gonna shut up again.
No, I think that's exactly what I want to talk about. I think hearing the rainbows and sunshines, because I think coming into these like 6 episodes, I'm always thinking, oh, messy middle, struggle, existential crisis, and to hear you share that there is a very, very nice win in being in that middle, I wanna be reminded what that is. Please enlighten me.
You're welcome. But I also feel like it is exactly because it's messy that we can feel all this. I think if the pipes were so straight, then the flowers will just come in, zoop, zoop, it's out. Like, I mean, so will the poop, so will the crap, right? But I think at the same time, I think for now, I appreciate that it's a bit messy because that then allows for support to come in. It allows for a lot more things that the middle manager can experience. And I guess it's a choice. I mean, I can choose to see, this sounds so cliche, but I can choose to see the pain as suffering.
Right.
Right. But I can also see it as it's a step to learning lah. So cliche, a bit cringe, but I think that is true for me at least.
So what have you been learning?
Oof. Wow. I think on the topic of what do I want and what I don't want, what I've learned, not only in my past few months at work, but or past few years at work, but I think since I was young, since I think my grandmother, I mean, she's passed long ago, but I think growing up, a lot of her teaching for me and my fellow cousins, all my cousins, like that's like 12 of us, 30 now, was that lean into what you don't want as well. Because that will tell you a bit more about your character than leaning into only what you want.
Okay.
I mean, she didn't say it in that manner. I think not that eloquent, not that was super eloquent, but I think there was a lot of wisdom in just that experience of if you feel the pain, lean into it.
If you feel the pain,
lean into it.
Yeah, so could you unpack that a little more? Like what does it mean to not just lean on what you want, but also lean into what you don't want, even if it's painful? Yeah.
So I think, this is going into a very interesting space. Something about identity is coming up.
Yes.
Especially when I talk to, when I speak about this topic. I feel a lot of times wanting to avoid things that we don't want comes from a certain identity that we might hold. So for example, I am an honest person. Therefore, I do not want to lie. Right? Because the identity that I'm holding is I'm honest. That's one example.
Yeah.
I'm a hard worker. Therefore, I will not slack. I will not let this project, I will not drop the balls for this project. I'll keep it going because I am a hard worker. So I think understanding the identity that I hold is very important in knowing in that context is what I want. Interestingly, I guess what I learned from my grandmother was also leaning into what I don't want will either teach me more about who I am in what I want, or really push me away from, okay, this is really not what I don't want.
Right. So if we go to the example you brought up, which is like, say you have a dishonest boss and your dishonest boss says, you got to lie on this, just tell the client something stupid and fend off the client for me, right? And like what you want to do is tell the truth.
Yeah.
Right? And what you don't want to do is tell the lie.
Yeah.
So in that situation, what does it mean to lean in? So do I lean into what I want or do I lean into not into what I don't want?
Right.
Yeah. What would that situation be about then?
This is a bit more, I think leaning into it doesn't mean just doing it.
Right.
Like leaning into it doesn't mean like I'm going to lie. I think it's about exploring identity. I'm an honest human being. Great. What is it about this thing that my boss wants that makes him want to tell me to, makes him want to have me be the one lying? And then we can explore my own value systems and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think a lot of times we talk about values and it's like fluffy and whatever. I think it's one of the best ways to figure out what your values are.
Yeah.
To lean into what you don't want. Yeah. So I think, and I hear friends, even myself, a long time ago was like, this is not me, this is not who I am. No. I think it's very powerful to even just begin questioning why. And then let those data points kind of lead you, give you like a pathfinder as to who you are, what you do, and what you want to go create for your life.
I guess I'm thinking back to my early career and I've never been caught in a position where I have to question my values, but it comes up for me in a way that I feel discomfort about being stuck in a situation. So for example, in my early career, having no experience whatsoever, having no idea what the working world is like, the discomfort, if I were to go back to a previous episode, made me question, is it imposter syndrome? Am I not just good enough? Or is this really what I don't want? do I not want to do marketing? Do I want to try something more creative? Do I want to do like business development? I don't know. So even though I don't know the answer to that, I guess it made me raise questions of maybe there are more out there. Maybe there's something that I can try instead. Maybe there is an alternative option and solution.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the quality of a life is dependent on the quality of your questions. I can't remember where it was from, but along those lines, or the quality of your conversations. I can't remember which one, but I don't know whether that resonates with you. Like, it's not about knowing the answer, it's about am I willing to question?
Yeah, and I think that also kind of the question marks also made me uncomfortable because I guess in that time it was also a lot about people staying in their workspaces for a very long time.
Right.
So if you want to try new things, it means you have to keep jumping and you have to keep exploring and doing other being in other workspaces and environments. But then it goes against the traditional expectation of staying put and like roughing it out and really, really like...
Yeah, back in my days.
Yeah. So for my parents, they were in their jobs for a long time. So it's a lot of weight on the shoulders, I suppose. First questioning your values, but then also what you want to do in life, and then also kind of fighting tradition and culture.
Yeah, my parents recently received some award, both of them at the same place, because they've been in the same company for like 35 years and they're proud of it, which is great. But I don't know if people our generation would be proud of. I've been here 35 years. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, thinking about it as a middle manager or people, as a millennial, most of my friends find the tension between them and their tops or their bosses as, I think this is not right for me, or I want to explore more things and therefore I want to jump. But I'm afraid that if I jump, my next employer will feel like, why is this person jumping so much? Are they not loyal? Okay. Which I guess is not even work conversation. I think it's a tradition conversation or a cultural conversation where in that generation, iron rice bowl stability is good. I think it's shifting a bit more to, I want to explore, I want to experience more. Purpose matters more to me than just profits or money or salary. Yeah, but that's just, I think it's just one common story I'm hearing amongst the people I speak to.
I guess I'll circle back to that whole like honesty, dishonesty thing, right? And I hear you on the like, it might have been tradition or culture for maybe for us in Asians, like as Asians working, that it's, even if you don't want, just suck it up, right, or whatever. But I guess I'm troubled by the example of like, say there is a core value, that is what you want, and someone who is above you, someone who's on the top, asks you to do something that you don't want to do, and what we're talking about right now is, well, at least consider, give it a thought. So as a middle manager, say you considered it and you felt, I don't want to do it. Then what? What's the conflict that you might experience? Yeah. Do you feel what could get in the way of you like actually circling back and saying like, yeah, actually I don't want to do it? Or do you go like, well, I thought about it and that's a good idea. I changed my mind.
This could happen, right?
No, because it does happen.
That
That does happen
Yeah.
because like you could be and this is me putting stories out there. Like you could be like the young professional who's like, I got my ideals. We should do things like that. The more experienced one says like, you have no idea. This is not the way. Just suck it up, young one. And then you're caught in that like, so what am I supposed to do here? Yeah, do I lean into what I want to do? Do I lean into what I don't want to do? Like, and yeah, how does that feel like for you? Because for me, I'll put my bias on the table. My bias is that values are the compass, and we can have different values. But if I'm going to be asked to do something which is not on values, I think I'll be extremely troubled by it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is a level of privilege which is very sad to say, but there is a level of privilege that comes into being able to act to your value, because you might be caught in a position where you need the job. You cannot afford to be reprimanded by your boss. And if you are stuck in a position of having to do something that you're not okay with, then there doesn't seem to be very much of a choice, because you're only going to be punished for speaking up. And that is not okay, obviously, but at the same time, there are people in positions where they have to hold on to that job because there is not an alternative solution for them. But of course, I think I'm also a bit spoiled in common ground where we are almost encouraged to speak up and to share what our values are, and to voice out things that we don't believe in or we don't are not okay with. So I do see the tension, because in a space prior to CG, I would definitely not have thought I could say anything or do anything, or the solution is almost to you just leave lah. You suck it out or you just leave. Yeah. So I feel torn by that, because I acknowledge the privilege of being in a safe team, but I do know that's not the case for a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah, but that speaks into the woes of like many, let's say, middle tier workers out there, right? Like, what if the system or the top wants me to do a thing that I don't want to do? So I can know what I don't want.
But what
can I do about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the crisis, right? Yeah.
This is, it's based on the premise that my values determine my actions. Is that? Just trying to piece it together. When you talk about values and you talk about doing things I don't want to do, is that correct? Like is it an open question?
The
like,
values guide your action. Yeah.
That's the premise, right?
Yeah.
Values question. Okay. Got you.
Yeah. I would certainly hope, like, if let's say I believe like my value is honesty, that I would therefore then say honest things or do honest things.
Yeah.
Or if I'm caught in dishonesty, I'm like okay being caught and being held accountable to it, because that's what I said is my value. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious about if you are in that position and you both are, right, where you don't have the same power as the top to, let's say, do as you wish. And yet you know there's something, I don't want to do this. Or there's something not right about it. So what do you do about that? What's the best way? I mean, I hear you, and then just quit lah. Which is one valid option that a lot of people take.
Yeah.
I think my approach to it is a bit, or at least I'm just gonna a lot of circling backs today.
Yes.
Circling back to the
it's the messy middle.
It is the messy
circles
middle
everywhere, right?
Yes.
I think back to the conversation around leaning into what I don't want. I think that thing about my top asked me to do something which I don't really want to do. I think that is a good signal to see what my values are, because I think the conversation now is I already know my values, and therefore I don't want to do this.
Right.
But I feel like at least the current circles that I'm in, the values are still unclear, still kind of muddy and raw.
Okay.
So I don't even know what my values are. How can I begin to make this decision?
Yep.
So I think even feeling that, I don't really want to do that, is a good indicator to what my values already are.
So the assumption is not that you already know the values. The
It's
assumption
like
is that you are
know
figuring it out.
Yeah, you know the sign.
Like know what you don't want to do could simply be know what makes you go like, ugh,
exactly.
gross.
Yeah.
Yuck, why?
Yeah.
And to pay attention to it and not minimize it.
Thank you. Podcast close. But I think that is exactly right. I think many there's this pressure of, I think since primary school, what are core values? And then the school has core values, and the whole MOE system has core values. Growing up, there's always core values everywhere. And I think it's kind of implicitly put onto everyone that you need to know your core values, which I agree is very important.
Yeah.
But how do we arrive there is not a simple, let's do a value sort. I'll give you 20 cards of 20 different values.
Yeah.
Pick which one most resonates with you.
Yeah.
Not the best.
Yeah.
I think noticing the internal
Yes.
and leaning into it, questioning
Yeah.
it is one of, in my opinion, one of the best ways to
Yeah.
even begin noticing, okay, what is this telling me about my values?
Yes. Yeah, I mean that I definitely agree with. It's easy to say, oh, I value this and I value that, right? But it's maybe more honest to like, okay, there's some stuff that really irks me, frustrates me, pisses me off. And actually to dig down deep, like actually what is the core value underneath the thing that irks you, right? So yeah, I suppose like let's say someone who never even, let's say a middle manager who never imagined themselves as an honest person. Like they wouldn't say like, hi, I'm an honest person.
Yeah.
But like the may come up when let's say their head of department tells them, oh, just tell the client we'll get it to them by 6 o'clock, but it like and the middle manager might think, but isn't it lying to them? And the guy's like, no, it's just like that. They'll understand.
Yeah, it's between us.
Yeah, and if you feel even the slightest like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good. And that's to pay attention. Actually, why doesn't it feel good? What does this tell me about me?
Yeah. And also to
Yeah.
not like rationalize yourself out of thinking that it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think if you're new to work and if somebody from the top is telling you something, then it's
Yeah.
very easy to be like, oh, they know better.
Yes.
And to accept that as normal behavior and to accept that as okay. But if it's not
Yeah.
okay for you, then it's not okay, full stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's like if we couple that with your episode 1 about imposter syndrome, right? If I'm already like doubting and questioning
Yeah,
and
exactly.
invalidating myself, and when someone is telling me to do a thing which I feel a bit about, I might like, well, I guess this person knows better because they're older, more powerful, more experienced, etc., etc. Yeah. I don't know. And if whoever's hearing this out there, by the way, just because someone is a boss or a leader or has like 30 years experience of don't know do what, they can also be dumb.
And they can also be wrong.
And they can also be unethical. And if they were interested in being smarter, better, or ethical, they wouldn't have that much of an issue if you brought it up. But if they do have an issue, well, then you kind of don't want to work for them anyway. But that's my own hot take. But, I could be speaking from a privileged position. Again, passing it over to you guys. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's making me think about when you're caught in a situation like that, right? And let's say you do know that this is absolutely not okay. I'm not here for this. I don't want to be part of this situation. There's the whole, okay, so do you speak up or do you leave? And sometimes when making the decision of leaving, that's a scary decision because the uncertainty of whatever's coming your way is fearful than to stay put and knowing exactly what you're in there for. So it's reminding me of a conversation that we had about the whole ready versus resistant.
Oh,
what's that? Say more.
right, we did have a conversation last week. Yeah, last week.
Yeah, and I think you were sharing with me about how you might want to make a switch and you might know that you want to make a switch, but the hesitance is it resistance? Is it fear? Is it like, what is that thing that's holding you back from making that switch? And how do you go from resistant to ready? So do you want to share a bit about that story you were telling me?
There were a few stories that we talked about. I mean, most conversations are stories, right?
I think the motherhood one really resonated with me.
Got it. Are you ready? Okay, so this is a story about motherhood. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I mean,
Yes,
you
I'm a
forgot,
mother.
huh?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think this was a story from a friend who, I mean, she was the mother.
You're right.
Back then when she was in labor, I mean, she told me the story after the baby was like 1 year old or something like that. She shared that. So she was in labor for a really long time. I think much longer than most normal human beings with a baby inside you would take. And for a long time, people have been telling her like, your body's not ready. The doctor was telling her, you just need to, it's not just a physical thing, it's a psychological thing, And she still couldn't do anything about it. It was still in pain and everything like that. But I can't recall whether it was a coach or her mom, because her mom is a coach, who spoke to her and was just like, you will be taking up the identity of a mother.
Right.
And that means there are other identities you need to let go of. Are you ready to take on your new identity as a mother? And she told me, she just, no words, just broke down and everything. Not like the baby came out immediately lah, but a few hours later, it was an easy movement of the baby out. And what she shared with me was, it wasn't psychology in general, or it's not just physical, but it is just the awareness that, oh, this is a choice I'm making, and I was not ready to make the choice to be a mother. And having that awareness raised to me, I can now choose and I can now deliver. I mean, in that particular context. So I think a conversation around that was around what are the things we feel we don't really want, but it's just because it's not kind of tied to our identity. And what new identities are we resisting such that we are not moving into them? Yeah. Yeah, does it make sense? I feel like the energy in this room just went down on the table.
No, like I can get what is in that story for me, but I'm also interested in like getting a sense of what are you both getting from that story, because I'm coming from a different position.
Yeah. I think what came out for me was when you first shared that story with me, in my mind it's like, oh, it's a head, heart, gut click in the person's being that I not only cognitively know that I'm going to be a mother, I'm also maybe fearful of all these new responsibilities that I have to take up. My entire life is going to change. Everything is going to shift. And that's connecting for her in that moment. And of course, that's a pretty different example to maybe the middle millennial experience. But when, for me, I guess, when I speak about changing jobs and changing careers and things like that, that is probably the biggest thing that's happening for me in that period, in that moment, you know, making a career shift, going to a new space, getting comfortable again with all the people, learning new skills, learning how to work with a new team. It's not as simple as, oh, just change jobs. But it's all of that responsibilities being tagged into that. If I'm making a career shift, then that's a change in role, a change in identity. So I think I resonate deeply with that because the resistance is valid.
It is.
Yeah, and the affirmation and validation from somebody that it's okay to feel resistance is, I think, what I appreciate most, because it's not as simple as just make a choice.
Yeah.
Do something else you don't like, then change. But there's all these other factors in play too. And while I will do it, I also feel all these things.
And it's not just the resistance to enter a new identity. It is, am I willing and ready to let go of what I once was? Yeah. So I think, I'm not sure about middle managers who are listening in now, but likely if you were a recent graduate from a university, this is something that perhaps you might want to look at as well. That I'm no longer a full-time student. I'm now full-time.
A working adult.
That in itself holds a lot of changes in responsibility.
Yeah, and I think even hearing you share that, I think where I'm sitting in right now is the shift between entry level to middle manager. Yeah, that transition phase is causing discomfort that I don't know how to articulate. Yeah.
Actually, I like that you use the word transition because I just shout out to one of our partners here, Pivotal. It was on their Instagram, and I thought when I read it, I was like, this is really cool. Which was, change is what happens outside. It's what happens to you, but transition is what happens on the inside. And I like that you use it's not a change, it's a phase of transition. I think that is really taken care of, because change is a constant, but do we take care of the transition we are experiencing for ourselves?
I mean, what I'm hearing from the leadership level, so I can add a layer to that, is I guess from a leadership level, there's that curiosity of like, what do people want to do in their career development, and you're looking at the, let's say, the ground or the executive level, and like, I want to level you up into like a middle manager. And if you're a middle manager, like, I assume you would want to level up into some form of leadership. And like, while some people easily like slide into these leveling ups because maybe they have already like done their own like interconnections inside, like, oh yeah, that's already me, or that's a part of me, that's where I want to go. but there will be others who go through a bit of a journey on like, I'm not sure, I don't know if that's me. And to see that it's a bit like that mother in the story, right? That there is a thing that you want. You do want to go there, but there's also so much that's still holding you back, right? All identities and all that. And as you sit in that very messy middle of trying to make that choice and trying to make the transition, it's painful. It's so painful, right?
All the
Literally,
labor.
it's labor, right? Yeah, and as long as you're stuck in that holding pattern, it's only the choice that will set you free.
Yep.
Yeah. And like and I guess we don't often see like career development from like how do you manage the internal emotional transition. Yeah, because like, I mean, I know a lot of my peers, even like as we age from 20s to 30s and 40s, a lot of them will say like, I don't want to be a manager of people. I don't want to be a leader. I just want to stay in this ground position where I'm very happy in. And is that okay? Yeah, and I guess that's a huge question because nobody can tell you whether that is okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so that'll be the next podcast, the future series.
3.5.
The messy tops.
The messy talk.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
The
But that's-
turbulent tops.
Yeah.
Done for you.
Turbulent, messy middle, turbulent tops. No, but I think that's actually very rightly pointed out, the emotional transition, because it's not so much of the, like what you started with, right? The task. It's not about the sudden additional workload you're doing, but it's the emotional settlement inside that is causing the heaviness.
Yeah.
Because you can have the skills of a top, but if
You're not ready for it.
the
you're-
transition,
yeah.
if the transition is not taken care of, then I guess you're not setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, like let's say tomorrow your boss actually comes in,
Mhm.
right? And says like, okay, there's like, this project's a bit complicated, so I need you to step up and lead a team of 10.
Automatic. What? Okay.
Yeah, like what happens inside though? What's the internal things you immediately go to?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Immediately don't want.
Yeah, but
Immediately
then
not
leaning into
ready.
it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but like experiment with this. So let's say
like,
like your bosses go to you and say like, you tomorrow you got to lead. Okay, maybe team of 10 is a bit dramatic. Team of 5.
Yeah.
You need to lead a team of 5, and it's gonna happen like next week. So you just have to like get your head together with this. That's what the client needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So immediately, what goes on internally in your world?
Immediately, like this is a hypothetical situation, but I already feel
Right.
like, oof, my
I'm
heart's
not
beating.
ready.
Yeah. But I feel like what's interesting is that though I feel not ready inside, I can
Right.
100% tell you, okay, I'll do it. Yeah.
So there is a want and a don't want.
Yeah.
All braided in.
Yeah, and this is a conversation that we had before, Xiao. Instead, there's the tension that I'm sitting with is the ambition of wanting these things, but also the reality of knowing that there are a lot of things that I have to factor into and there are a lot of things I have to manage in order to achieve that ambition. So that tension is what is emotionally exhausting. In some ways, and I think that is what is not in the JD. You know what I mean? You don't have
Yeah.
like transition to manager and a bullet point being like
Emotional capacity to
emotional capacity to learn new things or like whatever. So I think that is the big like I don't know, not misunderstood, not understood, not
Yeah.
talked about thing lah.
Yeah.
Right.
But definitely what I'm picking up from yours is like, so in that process, under the simple principle of, just know what you want to do and lean into what you don't want to do and just don't be afraid of asking questions, right? It's also like, don't be afraid to start to articulate all the difficulties that lie underneath the hard choice that you're about to make, right? And talk it through. That's what I'm hearing from your story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in this hypothetical.
Yeah. Oh, but it's real. It feels so
Yeah,
real.
it feels so real. It feels like it's possible. Yeah, it feels like it could be like a tomorrow.
It could be.
Really like email.
But I feel like for me, it is, I feel in my body that there's a conversation around risk that's coming up. Like, I think it was smooth and easy and I know I'm competent enough to get this done.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that wouldn't be so heavy. It would just be like, oh, okay, cool. Let's get this. Let's make this work. But I think I feel that there's a risk, whatever that could be, maybe incompetence, or I don't trust myself enough, or I don't see enough things around me that I'm doing well, that can I really take on one more thing on my plate? I think that's what makes me go, ugh, hell no. And I still might say, yeah, sure.
Yeah. That's an internal script, but
Yeah.
what is projected
Yeah, it's
outwards is
all
totally
internal.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. But then now I'm curious. Okay,
Yeah.
open question. Now I'm curious, what would be, then why do we choose to say, yeah, sure? Because that in itself is also a choice, and it makes it sound like we want. And that, I feel like there is something that we want. That's why we say, yeah, sure.
I know for me it's two things lah. It is the element of ambition, but it's also the element of imposter syndrome lah. The need to always prove myself.
To you, not to somebody else. Oh, sorry,
That's the question mark, right? I don't know.
Okay.
The need to
Curious.
prove myself.
Got you.
My competency lah, and my ability to do things, even if it's not asked up for, like even if there's more than every permission to say no.
Yeah.
So I don't know the distinctions between the two. That's something that I'm still figuring out. What is ambition and what is imposter syndrome? Or like what is the need to prove? But yeah, I think I also am in a space where I'm also questioning what it is that I actually want out of my career.
Yeah.
Do I really want these things? And is it because this is the natural trajectory of my career? That's why I want it? Or do I just want to be, I don't know, I want to sell coffee at a coffee shop. I don't know. You know?
Yeah. What are you getting out of it?
I feel like wants and don't wants are quite flexible. In a sense, like maybe I like you say, right? Ambition is what's driving you. So maybe I don't want to lead 5 people tomorrow. But I know I want to contribute to the work that we do as as Studio Dojo, and trying to contribute to communities and peoples and businesses and organizations. And then that one kind of triumphs over this little don't want that I don't want. I think that's where it can get also a bit messy, where okay, I don't want, but I want.
Yeah,
and can we even distinct that for ourselves?
Yeah,
You get what I mean?
distinguishing it for yourself is one thing. Articulating it to somebody else is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And I guess speaking from the position at the top, right? Like what's actually useful is that this kind of open conversation, literally using the words I want, but I also want, and I also want,
But I don't
and
want.
I don't want, and I don't want, and
Yep.
to actually almost just lay out all the cards,
Yeah.
and then to also allow like the top to also say, okay, yeah, I want this, I want this, I want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, because unless we all show our cards, we can't find that happy little snap, right? Okay, so what you want is what I want, is what the organization wants, is what the client wants. Fantastic. But since we also know the other competing or opposing wants, don't wants. But at least now we know what we are playing
Dealing with,
with. We know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And it's like, can we keep the space safe enough so that we can circle back on like an update on, that small teeny weeny one that I suppressed a little bit and minimized. Like it's suddenly becoming a really big I want right now.
Yeah.
And like I hope that's okay, but it changed. And to be okay with that.
Okay. I think this conversation definitely, I don't know if you are listening out there and if this is even more messy for you than what you started out with, but I hope it gives you like a starting point to consider lah. Not just your values, but what you want in your career and what you don't want in these spaces, in your tasks, in your relationships. And even though we cannot give you like a clear and straight answer on how to navigate it, I hope that you act on your little irk that you feel inside, or at least sit with it for a while. And as we bring this convo to a close, I think what's nice if we end off with like one thing we want and one thing we don't want to do for the rest of our day. Not in your career.
Rest of our day. Okay, it's about 4
or like
now.
in general.
Okay, that's true. I think on the premise that I can't recall if it was Steve Jobs who said like you can only connect the dots backwards. I think it was him. Can't remember. But I mean, another way to look at what I want and what I don't want, all those irks, is also looking at your past the big decisions you've made in the past now, even the small, tiny decisions you've made in the past, drawing those dots together can kind of let you know, okay, actually this is kind of what I want in general. And because that shows your compass, I think like you said earlier, where your compass points to. Yeah. Even that, so interesting. Even that was like,
Is it like,
heavy.
is it scary to put on the table?
Yeah, what do you want?
So the automatic response was what I want for those listening.
Yes.
Which I think is fine as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you listening, whether you're middle or not, because I think everyone will experience the middle some way, somehow, whether you're top, middle, bottom, or customer or whatever. Know that all the resistances you feel are important and they tell you more about yourself than anything else. And it's all okay. Yeah. What I don't want is for us to, anyone, middle, top, whatever, whoever you are, us as human beings, to move through life based on what we believe was charted for us, rather than to live with what your voice tells you who you are. Yeah, I think that will be the greatest disservice to yourself and the people around you. Yeah.
Shall?
I want tops to, like fellow leaders, fellow tops, to normalize the idea that people having clarity over decisions is not going to come by them sitting by themselves figuring it out. Let's normalize supporting each other's clarity by laying our cards on the table of I want, I don't want. And it's normal that we can't really see that wonderful divine snap just yet. What I don't want is for people to feel like there's something wrong with you for not being clearer about what you want and don't want. I think as Afzal said, it's leaning into what you already know of what you want, leaning a bit, exploring into what you don't want, and asking yourself, does that tell me a little bit of information about what I really care about? Yeah, it's a journey, it's a bit of a mess, and let's normalize being okay talking about it and figuring it out together. Even at work.
Especially at work. I think this is the second episode we're recording, and I think what I am learning about myself is that this is hard to hold a conversation and have it be recorded. But in saying that, I want to try, and I want to have another 4 more conversations with another 4 more middle managers and my boss.
We'll try actively to shut up.
No, don't do that. And I think even though I'm not great right now, I want to keep trying, and I don't want to have to do this alone. Yeah, so I'm thankful for having a peer and having a boss and having Brendan in the room with me while I also figure out my way through producing this podcast. Yeah.
Doing a great job.
Affirmations.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so to all of you listening out there, I want to validate for you that it's okay not to be like crystal clear about what's going on in the messy middle. And actually, I learned a lot from what I don't know, and I learned a lot from what I don't want. And sometimes that's the clearest part. Like, if you take home nothing from this episode, what I hope you can practically do is just sit down and whatever situation you're currently facing, just write down actually bullet points. What is it that I don't want? What is it that I don't want? What is it that I don't know? Then after you finish that, then you write, okay, now what have I discovered about what I want and what I know? And you'll be surprised at how actually starting off with the I don't want and I don't know can be surprisingly clarifying. So that's my simple little pro tip for the day. Yeah. So again, like the previous episode, if you are from middle management or you're a top wondering about what on earth are middle managers thinking of, if you got a question, if you're wondering, just like drop us like a direct message and maybe we'll add in an extra episode dealing with whatever questions came up.
Yep.
Yep.
Bonus.
So with that, I think we've reached the end of our episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
And thank you so much.